It's week 2 in the waiver wire. What are the players you need to know? Let's talk about it.
You got a team, here's a word of the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
You've got to be a champion, Sigmund, and that's why we're here in week 2 to help y'all out with your waiver wires. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, and we are live, and it's waiver time, Sigmund, and, well, it's time to swing your sword, as you often say.
Yeah, although this week, Cease, I don't know, like sometimes in week 2, we have the question of, do you spend all of your money on one player? Remember, folks, you should be weighted towards more aggressiveness early in the season with your waiver wire pickups because you get to enjoy the fruits of that player's labor for longer in the season. And also that's when that initial reveal, the new reality comes and catches some of us by surprise. And maybe if you are willing to adopt the new reality with less evidence than other people who say, I want to see it again before I commit. But really this week sees minor adjustments, but you pretty much are going to be going forward with the team you drafted.
Yeah, go forward with the team you drafted and make changes along the way. Like changes at quarterback, we start there. Your upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com. Send it to me in their private chat again, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are talking about it. Oh, I've got it right here. Upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire. Quarterback, which includes Justin Fields. That's right, if he's still out there.
Yeah, well, and the in Fields is almost certainly not out there, but he's definitely. This is a good chance for me, Cease, to talk about the quality of the week 1 performances and how, in addition to your waiver recommendations, including drops and what percentage to drop for, we're going to give you the upgrades and tell you why players' value is going up and give you an idea. But this week at quarterback, the headliners are Michael Penix and Daniel Jones at 5 to 10%. Now, Michael Penix, we saw him run a little bit more, although this week he's going up against a pretty tough Minnesota defense. Probably not going to have Drake London, maybe not going to have Darnell Mooney. And remember, this team wanted to run the ball, but they're playing Tampa, one of the toughest run defenses. So I think you're going to see a more balanced approach this week. But overall, you have to be happy with what you saw from Michael Penix. Likewise with Daniel Jones. How much of it was Daniel Jones' renaissance? You know, he's another year removed from the 2023 ACL tear. Maybe we didn't factor that in enough. He's surrounded by talent. He's got a good running game. Shane Steichen at one time we thought was a really good offensive mind. And Daniel Jones, now it was Miami who's already given up on the season. We're going to see them face a Denver defense, which certainly has not given up on the season. And we're not going to play Daniel Jones, but if Daniel Jones is at least competitive against Denver, maybe we're really on to something as the schedule gets a lot easier. So depending on your quarterback situation, maybe you will want to spend up a little bit more than 5 to 10%, but I don't think either of these guys are necessarily going to be true season changers. With Daniel Jones, I'll leave the door open a little bit for that because of the nature of this offense and their willingness to allow him to run.
Yeah, willingness to allow him to run. JJ McCarthy?
Yeah.
Based on what we saw last night?
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy, Geno Smith. I mean, these are more like 3 to 5% kind of guys. With Geno, you love Geno's riverboat gambler mentality as a quarterback, and you like the talent he's surrounded by, and the quarterback is going to have to carry this team more than the defense, for instance. And at least the running game, Aston Genty, not a lot of room to run. Patriots have a lot of talent on that front four. But I think that, again, Geno's facing a little tougher matchup against the Chargers this week. McCarthy's facing not as necessarily a tough matchup against Atlanta, but remember, he did all that in one quarter. And what did we see last night? 26 rush attempts, 20 passes. That's, I think, going to be the game plan for the Vikings. They were trailing in that game, and they still stuck with the run, and they won because of it. So that's not going to discourage Kevin O'Connell from having that kind of split. But as McCarthy gets more comfortable, as Jordan Addison comes back from his suspension in a couple of weeks, and we get all hands on deck in this pass offense. So again, we're looking at these quarterbacks not as necessarily immediate fixes, but as players to put on your bench that can mix into a quarterback by committee approach.
Yeah, are we going to see Mac Jones this week?
Right.
And then the Jackson Dart situation, you'll be shocked to know Brian Daboll didn't commit to Russell Wilson for week 2.
Right. And then he
I'm
said,
shocked.
well, yeah. And he said, well, Russell's our starter. And, but Darius Slayton came out to say, hey, Daxton Dart's a great player. He wants to play. We all want him to play. But you don't always do the right thing by throwing a player in the fire right away. So let's remember that. I mean, the NFL has gotten way out of hand with playing young quarterbacks, and it can actually hold back their growth and development instead of encouraging it. With Jackson Dart, it's time to add him in super flex leagues. With Mac Jones, we're going to see about Brock Purdy. And not that you would play Mac Jones, but certainly in super flex leagues, you might want to pick him up. And depending on how many quarterbacks are carried in your league, if Brock Purdy's your starter and you're not happy with your number 2, you might pick up Mac Jones.
Ian's cat back in the chat room says, I scheduled all my meetings around this show.
Yeah, it's great. Well, and he was a Ravens fan. So, oof, I'm glad we can give you a little chaser to move on from that.
Chase it down like this beautiful Baja Blast Mountain Dew this morning. Unsponsored endorsement. Although we're open to sponsors. I'd be sponsored by Mountain Dew Bloom.
Oh, absolutely. Do the do.
Yeah, we missed you guys as well. It is upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It's Sigmund's report. It's available at footballguys.com. That's the best way to support this show. So we move on to the running back position. And let's start with a guy that we didn't see in week 1, but is at the top of your list, Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, and if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is out there, he's a 50-plus percenter. And I say that knowing that he's not out there in most leagues, but there are some leagues that drafted in late July, early August, and maybe they didn't have a waiver wire run before the season. So he actually is our empty the wallet guy, as he had a very auspicious beginning. And with Quinshon Judkins, I think 10 to 20% indicates that talent-wise, there's a lot there. But Dylan Sampson, who, spoiler alert, is more like 3 to 5%, he did enough in the passing game. I think that we envision this more as a committee, no matter how good Judkins is as a runner on early downs. And it's the Browns. It's the Browns. I mean, how much production can there possibly be in this offense? So that's what keeps Judkins from being a 25 to 50% guy or somebody to spend more of your money on, because it's just hard to see anybody from this Browns offense changing your fantasy football season.
Yeah. What about the rest of the running back position? Because it seems like on your list, there's upgrades and there's a lot of downgrades.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And I suppose, Cease, if we were going to get our fine-tooth comb out, we might say you're going to do some shuffling of backup running backs. I mean, we might change our order of the stashes. For instance, someone like Bashal Tutin is more interesting now that Tank Bigsby was traded to Philadelphia. Tank Bigsby less interesting in Philadelphia, and it doesn't necessarily mean Will Shipley's a drop, by the way. They actually like Tank Bigsby for kickoffs. 77% Cease. I think 77% of kickoffs were returned in week 1. So your kickoff returner can change your season, as far as field position and breaking some big plays. And I think the Eagles looked at Tank Bigsby and said, well, he can help us as a kickoff returner. So, shuffling some of these guys, but that's more about, like you said, the downgrades, some of the backups and the speculative backs that have lost their luster, but not a lot of momentum from the waiver wire running backs otherwise.
Yeah, not a lot of momentum for the backs. So we sit and we wait. And of course, Howie Roseman had to make another trade. Of course he did. Because he's addicted to trades, and that's why we love him. Time to go to the wide receiver position. Again, upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. And, I did just wake up, but you've got 2 Chargers at the top of your list.
Yeah, there's your headline. If you want a headline from the waiver wire, and remember, wide netting it. So, my beautiful, lovely wife, the love of my life, Kate Cecil, she's in a league at a dentist office that she works in. She works in a dentist office sometimes. And I was helping her with her waiver pickups in her ESPN league. And wow, I'm glad we wide net it. I'm really glad that we wide net it. All those years that we've been wide netting it, we've been doing the right thing. So, in my leagues, in your leagues, Cecil, Quentin Johnson's not out there. Keenan Allen's not out there. But I think in a lot of public leagues, they might be out there. I usually go by the Yahoo ownership percentages. If it's below 60, 65%, then I assume it might be out there for somebody. and we need to estimate this. And see, so I'm curious what you think about this too. I have Keenan Allen ahead of Quentin Johnson, even though Quentin Johnson outscored Keenan Allen. And I think the main headline here is Justin Herbert is going to create a lot more value. And Greg Roman, by the way. Hats off to Greg Roman for having a pass-heavy offense, even playing with a lead in the second half. And it was the right thing to do. And putting this offense on Justin Herbert's shoulders is the right thing to do. Justin Herbert supported the fantasy value of 3 wide receivers in week 1. 3 against a Chiefs defense that we thought was, not an easy defense to face, and not one that was easy for him to face last year. So I have Keenan Allen first because you can see Keenan Allen hasn't lost a step. He hasn't lost anything. He's going to be that guy that Herbert goes to on money downs. He's going to be that guy when you need to move the sticks, when it's 4th and goal, Johnston, what's nice about him is he hasn't become a more complete receiver, but the Chargers are using him exactly the way he should be used. Crossers. Here's the thing. You want to get the ball in Quentin Johnston's hands when he's already moving, so that speed and size together creates a threat for the defense. And you're seeing Justin Herbert also processing the field, seeing the field validly, and delivering the ball on time and accurately. So that's how Quentin Johnson had a big game. And I have Keenan Allen at 20 to 40%. I have Quentin Johnson as 15 to 30%. You're not breaking the bank for these guys, but they can at least settle in as wide receiver 3 flexes. Keenan Allen maybe a little more of an edge in PPR leagues. Quentin Johnson a little more edge in 0.5 PPR. More of a downfield receiver. Keenan Allen more of a possession receiver. But the Chargers passing game, it's super exciting right now. And Monday night, we get to watch them against Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, and talk about buying low in your fantasy leagues as well, selling high. If I had Quentin Johnson, I might be holding. Which, how many times have we said that about Johnston, right? It seems different, but we're always watching out for those Vic Fangio false positives, right?
Yeah,
Since
and
we mentioned him, we got to bring him up because there he is, everybody.
good.
It's still here.
Mhm.
We still have all the old stuff.
Mhm.
It's still right there
Mhm.
waiting for us every day. So watch out for the false positives. We'll have to see if Johnston and this new look, Greg Roman. That's Greg Roman? It's Greg
Yeah.
Roman. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that, see, this is another good moment quickly for some fantasy football theory. Too many mouths to feed can be a fallacy when a team is willing to give their quarterback the keys to the offense, and it's a quarterback playing as well as Justin Herbert played last Friday night.
Yeah. We have a debate going on in our live chat room here on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. And Samuel says, I like Butte because Butte's up next when we talk wide receivers. And in fact, Darren, is it Darren? Yes, Darren saying debating using number 1 priority on QJ or Butte.
Yeah, I think that Butte and QJ, I like that. And by the way, as mentioned in the chat room, Southeast Louisiana receiver from New Iberia outside of Lafayette went to LSU. Why did we ever doubt him? Again, Jeff Howe, longtime Patriots insider, said he had a stunning turnaround this offseason and summer. Tom Curran, he's been covering the Patriots since we were like school kids. He said that he predicted that Butte would outscore Stephon Diggs this year. So you couldn't say no one could see it coming. All right. But Butte is also the only receiver on the field all the time. He's on the field in 2 and 3 wide receiver sets. So why Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen over Butte? Because I just think Justin Herbert's farther along as a passer at this point. Drake May, a lot of errant passes. There's more there. Drake May had an easier matchup in week 1, and Butte still was very good. But also Stephon Diggs is going to get healthier as he knocks off the rust. So I just think that there's more paths for the Chargers receivers because of quarterback quality, but it is a good debate. I have Butte at 10 to 20%, and he should be picked up in every league.
Pick him up in every league. Now be a little careful because I talked about trades, and yeah, you're going to work the trade. Be Howie Roseman of your league.
Mm-hmm.
Be awesome of your league. Be a champion like Howie Roseman. You have Marquise Brown here, and I'm just thinking Tyreek Hill's going to end up in Kansas City. So let's talk about Hollywood for now. And remember, it's like fantasy football is like a snow globe, Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
Looks nice. You shake it up. You shake it up, and then the snow falls, right? So sometimes you're gonna have to shake up your team, and well, it might be Marquise Brown on your waiver wire for now, and then we'll wait to see what happens with Tyreek and if he does somehow end up back in Kansas City. So let's talk about Calvin Austin, Marquise Brown. Looks like you have Wan'Dale Robinson here in that level of 5 to 10 percenters.
And 5 to 10% just indicates like cycling out some players on your bench for upside. Now, in the case of Hollywood Brown, it might be a little more than upside. You can play him in PPR leagues, especially while Roshy Rice is suspended. Now, maybe Xavier Worthy's going to play with a harness. See, I want to just appeal to your years and years and years of experience covering the league. When a wide receiver plays with a harness on his shoulder, does it affect his productivity?
1000%.
Yeah. So don't expect that Xavier Worthy with a harness is going to be the same as Xavier Worthy without a harness. Okay. And also, it might make him a little shy to take hits on that shoulder or to go up in the air when he might have to come down on that shoulder. So Hollywood Brown should lead this team in targets. But like you said, Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins season falling apart, lurking there. Wan'Dale Robinson's interesting because they were starting to vary his usage. Now, Russell Wilson threw the ball like 37 times. That's how he got to 6 catches. But you're stashing him with the possibility that Jackson Dart at some point soon really invigorates this offense. And then there's Calvin Austin, perfect Arthur Smith play design, executed perfectly by Aaron Rodgers. And what you have with Calvin Austin, he's the clear number 2 receiver for this team. Aaron Rodgers better than expected, meshing well with this offense. Now, Seattle's up this week. So that's what I'm saying. We're upgrading our bench. You don't want to play Calvin Austin against those Seattle corners this week. Watch him have a 70-yard touchdown, which would make me happy. But if he's on your bench, that's okay. You can take advantage of what's growing there in Pittsburgh. So this is your undercard at wide receiver, but some players whose value can grow, and in the case of Hollywood Brown, who can help you right now.
Help you right now. Help me. Super way down on the waiver wire priority list. Let's just put a pin in this, but I'm still expecting Troy Franklin to do more.
Sure.
We saw some flashes. There weren't many things good for the Broncos offense in the passing game because Bo Nix kept throwing picks. If he cleans that up, which he should, although 3 of the last 7 games he's had double interceptions, more than 1 interception. So let's put a pin in that. But Troy Franklin, and I love the conspiracy theories, Bloom. I'll get out my tinfoil hat, play my theme music of people at Football Guys who are like, why did Cecil take Troy Franklin as best alpha? There's a reason why I took him.
Is it Brian Windhorst? Cecil Lammey took Troy Franklin. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Well, and real quick, Cease, and you might have already answered this. So Evan Ingram, going to miss some time. So is Franklin, you think, the player that could benefit the most from that?
Coach didn't talk yet about Evan Ingram, but it would be Franklin and Mims. Mims would benefit from that because they'll start using him as the Joker again if Evan Ingram's out. Lucas Kroll doesn't know what he's doing. Like, as good as he is, he still doesn't know what he's doing. And it's evidenced by Bo yelling at him on Sunday of like, stop when it's a soft zone, stop, sit down. But anyway, Bo's got enough to clean up without worrying about yelling at his teammates. But yeah, there's something there, Bloom. It's a little, 1%, 0.5%, whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, and this is, I think, important to watch these situations. And of course, that's more like for the leagues we're in, Cease. That's how deep we're going. So yeah, it's one for the hardcore.
I'm glad you mentioned that about wide netting it too, because sometimes we'll go through stuff and I'm like, really? And then really.
Keon Coleman was available.
You'll be shocked to know what's out there.
Keon Coleman was available.
I got plenty of messages from people that are like, my fantasy league, when I drafted, they didn't know who Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt was. And then on Sunday, guys were messaging me like, screw you for getting this guy that I never heard of. So isn't
that the best feeling? That's the best feeling. I mean,
it's like discovering a band before anybody else.
Well, and when your league mates are mad at you and they're like, how did you, why? I don't even want to, like I said, Cease, way back in the day, I said, this is when I was a little more aggressive and younger, had more testosterone. The goal is to make
Men's Clinic.
Right. The goal is, you have a sponsorship with them? That's a sponsorship you're getting paid for, I bet. The goal is to make other people not want to be in a league with you.
Okay. I like it. That is. Aaron says it's salty. Salty. I like that. That is salty. Let's get to tight ends here. Upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com. And we love you guys. Love you guys in the live chat. And hey, keep them coming. Keep the questions coming as we run through this live every Tuesday. And we'll have our previews on Wednesday and Thursday. Have On the Couch, have Thursday Night Live with Waldman, of course, and then have our Sunday night recaps live. But let's get to the tight ends. And the best way to support the show is check out footballguys.com. So please and thank you. A lot of Juwan Johnson. I think Juwan Johnson kind of kicked off the chat room this morning. So let's talk about Juwan to kick off the tight ends.
Yeah, and this is the real meat of the waiver wire this week, because if you have George Kittle, you maybe didn't draft a backup tight end because you got George Kittle, and you have Brock Bowers. He's playing on Monday night. We'll learn more as the week goes on, but you might have to prepare to not have him. And see, when we get to shut him downs, there's some players that people drafted to start for them. Evan Ingram, for instance, who's hurt. I think a lot of people might be asking, do I even hold Mark Andrews? Do I even hold David Njoku? We'll get to that part. But let's talk about pickups. The point is, you're going to want to be looking at tight end pickups. A lot of teams are. And it starts with Juwan Johnson, who played like 97% of the snaps. That's crazy for a tight end. And he's a receiving tight end. Okay. At one time, Juwan Johnson was one of the highest touted wide receivers. I think when he was at Penn State, right? One of the highest touted wide receiver recruits, ends up getting converted to tight end. And now he was not quite the favorite target. I think that Chris Olave had more targets than Juwan Johnson, but Spencer Rattler still targeted Juwan Johnson like 11 times, and he was the leading receiver in terms of catches and yards, not taking as much punishment as Chris Olave. So yeah, I think that you're looking at Juwan Johnson as Spencer Rattler's guy going forward. And in PPR leagues, I would especially weight him compared to some of the other names we're going to talk about.
Yeah, some of the other names we're going to talk about at this is, how do you feel? How nervous do you get? Well, maybe not you. I might be asking this to the wrong person, because you love Kyle Pitts unabashedly for years and years and years. And now, I think, what is it? Ian Hartitz, our buddy. I keep seeing his memes about Kyle Pitts, and I'm like, yep. I feel the same way, Ian. Feel the same way. Can you trust him?
Yeah, well, for this week with Dave London banged up, so that's helpful. Darnell Mooney probably not at least 100% yet. And then Michael Penix, remember he talked about Kyle Pitts, like, that's my guy, I'm going to give him the ball, and sure enough, we've seen the Falcons change their approach to Kyle Pitts. He's more of a short-range bully, almost like a Jonnu Smith kind of presence in the offense than somebody that you're trying to use to dominate above the rim or to rip the seam. And that's fine in PPR leagues. So I think that Kyle Pitts can help you out right away if he wasn't drafted. And he's a little bit separated from a larger group at the next tier. That's 7 to 15%. And again, I want to remind everybody, if this is your first time using my report or tuning into the show, the percentages are more to rank players within positions and to give equivalencies or rank players across positions. So if you have just like a best player available pickup, but you know better than I do how your league bids. You know whether people are aggressive early, or a lot of people like to sit on their money and have the hammer at the end of the season. So you adjust your bids based on what you know about your league's customs. I'm going to tell you like my priorities, and Kyle Pitts is a priority over these next three guys, Cease. But maybe after next week, I might say, oops, maybe one of these guys should have been higher.
Right. One of the guys should have been higher in that next range, which includes Hunter Henry and Brenton Strange.
Yeah. There's some players here that can help you. Harold Fannin too. With Hunter Henry, he was in on a bigger percentage of the snaps than he was in last year. He made some catches on balls from Drake May that he shouldn't have thrown, maybe. And he figured out a way to make the catch. Really tight coverage, which, Hunter Henry's not a guy who's going to create a lot of separation, but he's going to make the play at the moment of truth. And against Miami this week. So Hunter Henry this week might have the highest ranking of any of these guys. Now, will his value persist? Does he have a higher ceiling? I don't know. Harold Fannin, the tough thing about Harold Fannin, they said they wanted to feature him. Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin. we took him, we love him, we're going to feature him right away. Guess what? They were telling the truth. And neither of those guys did anything to discourage them from doing that going forward. But Joe Flacco threw the ball 45 times, and it was the Bengals. So against the Ravens this week, I don't know. We might see kind of like Daniel Jones. We might see some correction there with Harold Fannin, but there's some excitement there as they want to get the ball in his hands. And then Brenton Strange, leading receiver for the Jags. Now, if you have Brian Thomas or Travis Hunter, you're like, yeah, I know he was leading receiver. Yeah. But he's used as a receiver more than Cade Otton was last year under Liam Cohen. And remember, Hunter Long caught the touchdown. So what if that was Brenton Strange? It was a tight end touchdown. So maybe Brenton Strange is the guy that we'll look back and say he should have been the number one tight end pickup of the week, because in the first week, a little choppy with this Liam Cohen pass offense, Trevor Lawrence a little choppy, Brenton Strange stood out. So what's he going to do when things start to settle in and Trevor Lawrence is more comfortable? Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Andrew, we need to know what's on your hat, because every time I see Andrew in the chat room, I'm like, that's a great hat. I don't know what's on it. But he says, and this goes back to your swing of the sword thing, weeks 1 and 2 are like extended draft rounds.
Yeah. Well, because again, you're going to have them all year. So you can say, and there's good philosophies on either side. And some of this stuff depends on what I would call, do you have a fat waiver wire or a thin waiver wire? So
you like them thick?
Yeah. And I cannot lie. So, a thin waiver wire means there's going to be a lot of circulation, and you might want to be more conservative because there's never enough roster spots for everybody to carry all the relevant players. I'm sorry, that would be the fat waiver wire. The thin waiver wire would be whenever it's a deep league or there's 20 roster spots, and it's going to be harder to find somebody. And then you might fire away knowing that there's not going to be many opportunities. And another thing I want to say, just since week 1, we're in week 2, opening week of the waiver wire, there are fewer impact players on the waiver wire than you think. When you look back, there are maybe 3 or 4 guys that truly had an impact, and that impact might have only been for a classic Cecil Lammey window of about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, there you go. It's good to see everyone in the chat room, including Bob Harris, hanging out with us here this morning. He's the OG. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you know what it is.
Yeah.
This will be an editing for the audio version, but I still want the audience participation that we've been doing. And pretty much we've been doing this for 20 years, right? I mean, I don't really remember a waiver wire show where we didn't do this next part, Bloom. I know we came up with it somehow. We were so youthful and energetic, right? And we're just like, let's do this stuff and let's do this stuff. And then we came up with this next part, and y'all love it. I love it too. And if you're like Ian's cat and you scheduled your meetings around this, you won't be in a meeting when you say this. But even if you are in a meeting, you have to say this when the rest of us say this. You have to say this when you hear this next part, because it's the first one. And I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. I'll hear this song during the non-playing season, and a tear will come to my eye because I want to say it, but I just can't. It's not official. Today, on the first waiver wire show of the year, it is official. So get the pipes ready, and I want everyone to join in with us as we scream it to the heavens. It is time to cue the Chuck D. I think I'm going to wake up my daughter. Anyway, Bloom, who are some week 2 shut them downs? Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot. Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold. There's not. It's just, even if it's there for a week or 2, we aren't going to wait around for that. Ollie Gordon, Caleb Johnson. I don't know if you want to say anything about this one. He played 2 snaps.
Yeah, done.
He's not in their plans for now. I'm not waiting around. It's Steelers offense. Chris Rodriguez, barely knew you, Chris. Mario Douglas, ends up it was Keyshawn Butte. Kyle Williams, Adam Thielen, Luther Burden. Again, he's behind Alameda Zacchaeus. Now, here's where we get to some that are a little bit tougher. Braylon Allen. Now, it's not a drop for anybody, but, I'm dropping Braylon Allen for Keyshawn Butte. I'm dropping Braylon Allen for a tight end if I need one, because I had George Kittle or some of the tight ends I'm about to talk about. Cooper Kupp. He's an afterthought. Rashad Bateman's tough because the momentum he had at Zay Flowers was so good, and it's going to be consistent. Jordan Addison, this is going to be a run-heavy offense. I know J.J. McCarthy's going to show growth. You want to wait on Jordan Addison for 2 more weeks for what? For him to be one of 4 guys after Justin Jefferson that's going to get targets in a limited pass offense. So, what you might be getting out of this is have an itchy trigger finger on dropping players this week if there's something interesting out there. I also think that Josh Downs, Daniel Jones against a Miami offense that barely was trying, still only supported Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman. Okay, it's just going to be really hard for Josh Downs. Maybe the hamstring's limiting him. Maybe I'll regret telling you to shut him down. I'd probably shut him down. David Njoku. When Harold Fannon's getting the tight end targets by design, what's left for David Njoku? I mean, he made beautiful music with Joe Flacco 2 years ago. He got 3 passes when Flacco threw 45 against one of the worst defenses in the league. What's going to happen with Njoku this year? Probably not much. Evan Engram. He was on his way to like a 5 for 35 or whatever kind of game. Is he going to be a season changer? How long is he going to be out? I'm probably not waiting around. Mark Andrews, team scored 40 points. He caught 1 pass. He's still on a rotation. What's going to happen when Isaiah Lakely comes back? So we're going to be talking about him on the waiver wire soon. Colston Loveland. Again, the Bears offense doesn't look like it's going to be a revelation. Colston Loveland wasn't a priority, not like Tyler Warren, not like Harold Fannin. Some rookie tight ends we keep, some we shut down.
Yes, and some it is time to grab your cuddle blanket. What is the? I was watching 30 Rock the other day, and I can't remember the actor's name. He's like, "I'm in love with a Japanese throw pillow." Like, yes, grab your throw pillow, hold on tight, and it's time to hold on in week 2.
I don't know, man.
James Franco.
Oh yeah. I don't really know if there's somebody that you would look at. Like Dak Prescott, he had a terrible fantasy output, but actually played really well. He's a hold on. I think actually this week, strangely enough, there's not a lot of nuance. Like the players who had down weeks, most of them, like obviously you're holding on to, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase. And, there's not a lot of in between this week. So it should make it easier as you go through your waiver wire claims. And I love the turnout this morning. I love spending time with my people. And it's so great to see all of you. It really, truly lifts my heart to see some of the names, like you said, see some of the avatars that we've known for so long. And we're managing our teams and we're trying to win our league and we're trying to make the right moves. But really, we're keeping each other company in a way that uplifts each other and really is about love. I see Cecil, Lammey, I love you. And all of you in the chat room, I love you too. And, we all can say that to each other more when we feel it. And I love being part of Football Guys and everything we get to do. And all of you out there listening, watching right now are the reason why.
Yes. And Aldwin, appreciate the kind words here in the chat room as well. We appreciate you guys. 20 years of the Audible. We've been doing this thing. Keep doing this thing. Sometimes a little more rushed than we'd like, but hey, that's okay, right? Okay, he is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey. The show's at the Audible. Thanks y'all for coming out. Stay tuned, and please stay frosty.